On today's episode of Behind the Wire on Rebel Radio, we are going to be talking about some things to look out for this coming month, the month of November. Some political things and also what we can expect here in the Pacific Northwest in regards to weather and what you should do about it. So stay tuned. So, as you know, I'm your host and the president of Washington 3%, Robert Burwell. And today, as I said in the opening, we are going to be talking about some things that are going on this coming month that you need to be aware of, and some advice for the coming months as we head on into winter and get ready for winter storms. So, first off, in regards to the left-leaning organizations that like to protest in Washington State and cause a lot of trouble for all the regular citizens and just basically run around, make our lives miserable, and make our state look ridiculous. We're talking, of course, about your far-left groups like, DSA, Antifa, all those kind of people, those people of that ilk. Now, as you know, the recent No Kings protest, while it was fairly big in Washington, it pretty much bombed in the rest of the country, being mostly, people slightly older than myself, and white hair out there dancing and singing and just looking silly and not really doing anything. But we have been noticing, because we do get reports on what is going on in the circles of the opposition, what they're saying, what they're planning, and what we're hearing from the far left radical side of the house here in Washington State is they are not happy with just the protests that have been happening, which are, with the exception of a few places like Portland and Chicago, have been, peaceful for the most part. People out there standing, protesting, yelling a little bit and stuff, but basically not doing nothing but actually protesting. And these groups are not real happy about that, about the outcome of that. They don't feel like they're making a big enough impact. So on many of their discussions, we're seeing a lot of people in these organizations that are actually pushing to step up the pressure, so to speak. They want to, they don't feel their message is coming across strong enough with just standing there holding signs and protesting. So there are a lot of people right now advocating to step it up and start engaging in more violent type protests. Particularly, they're calling out for property crime, vandalism, infrastructure hits, things like that. They're pushing to escalate it up to property crime, and that's what they're saying. Now, are they going to go there? There's been a lot of arguments back and forth in their community about should they or should they not do it. But just the fact that the more radical elements in their midst are not happy with what's going on and are pushing to escalate to more violent type protests, that's something we need to be aware of. That, no matter which voices win out in that discussion, those elements, if they feel like they need to be being more violent, acting out property crime, destruction, things like that, they'll probably just go out and do it by themselves. That's what they've done in the past. So we don't have anything planned that we can see, but we just do know that these discussions are happening, and there's a lot of dissension in the ranks on how to proceed because they're not happy with how things are going, and there is a lot of voices that are calling to escalate. So that's something to look out for, be aware of as protests come up. We'll have to see how this all works out, but just a little heads up that that's what they're talking about right now. My second thing I want to talk about is related to the government shutdown. Now, as you know, government's been shut down almost a month, because the Democrats, they don't want to just pass the same bill they've passed, so many times before to keep the government functioning, and then go into the normal discussions on budgeting issues and things like that, like we always see. No, they're trying to do the discussions and stuff now and trying to hold out for, basically, was it $1.5 billion more in spending to be included on just the extension bill. Not even waiting for the main bill and the negotiations on that. They're holding the government hostage, and the people of the United States hostage with their demands to try and run the deficit up. Now, what we're seeing, and I know a lot of you have probably seen this already, is there's a lot of concern moving forward about benefits being cut on SNAP cards, which is basically food assistance. So a lot of people in November will not be getting their food stamps on their SNAP cards this coming month. And that's going to put a lot of people in a bad position. They've come to be too reliant on it. Food stamps are supposed to be a hand up, not a way of life. Okay. Plenty of people, they lose their job. They're in a bad financial position. They get on assistance, and they take advantage of that system to get their, carry them through their downtime until they can, get another job or whatever and improve their situation and then get off of the program. That's what it's intended for. We have millions upon millions of people in this country, though, that is a lifestyle. And for some, it's a generational lifestyle. They never work. They sit at home. They feel like entitled, to sit at home and do nothing and have the taxpayers take care of them. As a matter of fact, if you watched any of the videos that have been coming out, these people have been making on like TikTok, YouTube, whatever, complaining about their food stamps are going to be cut off in November. They're actually coming out saying that it's the taxpayer's job to take care of my kids. No, it's not my job to take care of your kids. You had them. It's your job to take care of your kids. Us taxpayers don't mind helping you when you're in a rough spot to help you get out of that spot and then move on with your life and become a productive citizen. But it's not our job to raise you and your family for life. It's not our damn job, okay? But that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is these people are going online in their videos, a lot of threats. You can go any social media site anywhere and you will see these people posting that they're threatening that if they don't get their food stamp money, no matter what, they're going to get their food. We're talking about people saying, I'm just going to go into the store and fill my card up and walk out, and I dare anybody to stop me, that type of attitude, basically shoplifting. To there have been a lot of concerning threats from some of these people stating they'll just hang out in the parking lots, and when people come out with their carts, they're just going to steal their food because they need to get theirs, right? And rather than try to shoplift, they're just going to wait out in the parking lot and rob people of their food straight out of their grocery carts as they're pushing them out. Again, this isn't some conspiracy theory or anything else. These people are actually making videos saying they are going to do this. Now, whether they're actually going to do it, I don't know. 90% of the time when people make statements like that on video, they're just talking full of crap, but fact of the matter is there's a disturbing number of these videos out there. And so this coming month, when you go to the grocery store, and it really is going to depend on, I guess, where you live and where you shop, because if you're in a neighborhood with a lot of people on assistance, the likelihood of something happening is probably more likely as people get desperate and want to, get theirs, as they say, instead of going to food banks and things like that to get help, they just say they're going to rob people. So Will this happen? I don't know. But just given all the videos that are out there and all the threats being made, as you go shopping in November, especially if you're in, you know, an area that has a high number of these people and already has a high incidence of shoplifting, just be aware of your surroundings when you come out of the store. You know, make sure you're safe. You know, just don't come diddy bopping out of the store with your you know, on your phone or whatever, not paying attention around you. Just keep your eyes on what's going around you. If you see some suspicious people heading your way, turn around, go back in or whatever. But just be aware. Not saying it's going to happen. There's just a lot of threats out there, so it's better be safe than sorry. And just a little heads up to make sure that you keep your head on a swivel and that you're aware of what's going on and that you stay safe. Now, as far as these people are concerned that are not going to be getting their government benefits because of the Democrat shutdown, you know, Democrats holding out for illegals rather than take care of their people, which, you know, is just ridiculous. But yeah, in regards to how you know, how these people, like I said, they should be, you know, going to food banks and that type of thing, right? Until such time as they can start getting their normal benefits, like, you know, they're used to. You know, they have alternatives to stealing, and that's local food banks. What we can do as caring people in the state is, you know, if you do have the ability or you have extra stuff this month, you know, because of what they're facing, the food banks are going to get hit hard. So if you have the ability, you know, we can go out and donate to, you know, these food banks and try to help some of these people who legitimately need the help and are caught in this government shutdown. They can actually have access to getting food and, you know, enough to get by until things get worked out at the federal level. You know, like I said, you know, I don't have a problem with helping people to go to the food bank. I do have a problem with people wanting to rob people at Walmart. And so I'd rather support that, you know, people going to the food bank than have these people out there robbing some 80-year-old lady who's pushing her little cart out to her car in the parking lot. So, like I said, but if you are concerned about what's going on with these people not being able to get food this month, donate, you know, find your local food bank, donate to it, help them out. And, you know, last thing on this whole EBT shutdown thing I have to say is, you know, I don't know if any of you have seen this, but there was a federal House representative who did an interview, a female, I can't remember her name, but it was pretty upsetting. She was being interviewed and being asked about the shutdown, and she just flat straight said that she knows that people are going to be hurt by this shutdown, but it's the only leverage the Democrats have, right? So they're perfectly fine with Americans suffering, as you will, you know, not having access to their normal help that they're supposed to get. It's perfectly fine for them to let these people suffer so that they have the leverage to try to hold on to what little bit of power they have left. You know, they care more about their power and their ability to hold on to it than they do about the American people. That should be telling you something. It should be telling you something. You know, if you vote in Democrats, you need to pay attention to what they're saying, because they're telling you the truth. They care more about their power than they do you. So that's something you need to think about next time you go to vote. Now, last thing I want to talk about. We are entering, you know, coming up on November. November in the Pacific Northwest tends to be the most volatile month as far as weather is concerned. We always tend to have our biggest storms in November. And the vast majority of people in the state, even knowing that, are never prepared. Because most people who live in the more built up areas, the worst thing can happen to them is that their power go out, you know, most times. the worst thing that can happen to them is they'll lose their power for 4 or 5 hours, and then they get back on, and then they're good to go. But as we've seen in the past, and as just people who live way up here in the mountains know, it can get a lot worse than that. And I mean, I have a creek in my backyard that it floods pretty consistently, and luckily my house is up on a hill, so I'm not affected, but other people who live lower than me do get affected by this. My power goes out all the time because I'm way up here in the woods. We're kind of like at the end of the grid, so when power does go out, we're the last to get it. And I can go days, I've gone 5 days, 6 days sometimes with no power, which I'm totally set up for. But it's not just, damage from the windstorms and trees coming down and the power going out. There's a lot of other things you need to consider. I mean, we also have a lot of areas that flood. We have some areas that flood very rarely, but when they flood, it's pretty catastrophic. Like the Ording floods we had, I don't know, about like 8-10 years ago, flooded the whole valley in Ording. You have the Snohomish floods, basically anywhere there's a river, there's a potential for flood and massive damage. Yeah, when I was in the National Guard, I worked a flood down in Centralia and Chehalis, and that was really bad. And that doesn't happen. That hasn't happened since, but that was, almost 27, 28 years ago now, something like that. That was a long time ago, but they do happen. And when they happen, people are caught out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do to kind of prepare yourself and your family for the storms that we have coming up, because that's one thing my organization does. Is we have local communities of our people that are together, and they talk about emergency preparedness. Some people call it prepping, whatever, but just being ready to make sure your family's taken care of. That's what we concentrate on. That is what we teach our members. We go out and we teach our members classes and things on how to do a lot of these things that we talk about as far as prepping and being prepared are concerned. Now, so what I'm going to talk about is, since we're coming up to the upcoming storm season, just put a little bit of information out there to try to give people some idea of some minimal things that you can do to be ready for the inevitable upcoming storms that could knock out your power for several days. First thing I'm going to touch on is we have a lot of people who like to run around in their cars and run off the bottom of the tank. Like my dad always said, run off the bottom of the tank. What that means is you're always on empty, right? And when you got to go someplace, you just put enough money in to get where you're going to get home. And bottom line is, you're constantly, when your car's sitting in the driveway, it's always almost out of gas, right? And that's not a good thing, especially in this season. One thing you got to look at, when power is out in your area, that means you can't get gas in your area. And if your car's sitting in the driveway on fumes, you don't have enough gas to get to someplace that has power to put more gas in it. So now you're stranded. And that's not a good thing, to be stranded at home. What if you have no way to heat your house, and you need to go to the store to buy some way to heat your house or whatever, or you don't have no food, because most people only have like a day's worth of food in their house, and power's out, gas station ain't got no power, and you're sitting on empty. You can't go to get food. You can't go to get a way to heat your house. You can't go to a friend's or relative's house who has power, because your car's sitting there on empty. And a real easy mindset to get in when it comes to your vehicle and the gas that you put in it. Everybody's like, oh, I can't afford to put more than like $20 of gas in my car at any given time. I understand that. I was very poor for a long time, and I had to live like that. But one piece of advice my father gave me that I always followed is that it's just as easy to run off the top of the tank as it is to run off the bottom of the tank. Now think about it. I mean, if you're constantly on empty, right? Every day when you go to work, number one, since you're on empty, you have to stop on your way to work to put enough gas in to make it, right? You put like, what, $10 in or whatever it is that you need to do your round trip to work every day. And then the next morning you get up and you do the same thing. But your car's always in your driveway on empty, and you have to get gas on your way into work, which means, you know, if you're running a little late and you can just barely make it to work, but oh crap, I got to stop and get gas or I ain't going to make it to work at all. So now you're getting up late to work. You know, it's just all kinds of problems, right? You're on that constantly battling, you know, do I have enough gas to get here? Do I have enough gas to get here? It's just as easy. It's just as easy to fill your car up once, right? Fill it all the way up once and then keep it at the top. So instead of stopping every morning on your way to work and putting in, you know, $5-10 or whatever you need to get to work, when you're coming home, you top off your tank. It costs you the same amount. You're not driving anymore. But instead of your car always being sitting there on empty and on the verge of leaving you on the side of the road, now you're on the top of the tank. So if something happens, an emergency happens, you got a full tank of gas, right? Power's out and you're freezing to death. You can go out in your car and start it up and run the heater, you know, anything, right? You can make it to go get those supplies you need because your car has a full tank of gas, right? You're always on the top of the tank. And you know what really is nice about running off the top of the tank too is those times when you got, you know, 6 days till payday and you're almost out of money and something happens and you have to spend that little bit of money you had to make it to payday. Your car still got a full tank of gas. It's got enough gas to not have to worry about it till payday, right? You can still, since the tank's full, you can make it back and forth to work the next 3-4 days you got until payday, whatever it is, right? You have that reserve in there. You don't have to say, well, gee, if I have to pay this, now I don't have money for gas for the next 5 days, you know? So just a little tip my father taught me and something that I've always practiced, especially since I live, you know, for me, the nearest grocery store is 30 miles away. And I have a gas station out here by me, but when my power's out, so is the gas station. So if my power's out, I got to go 30 miles. And if I'm on empty, I'm not going to make that. So I always, for the longest time, I just, you know, whenever I go to town, on my way home, I top off my tank. My car's always sitting out there full tanks of gas. So if emergencies happen, I don't have to worry about that. That's one thing I don't have to worry about. I know if I have to go, I can go because I have gas in my car. And like I said, it's just as easy to run off the top of the tank as the bottom. It is. And it's always a good practice to run off the top in a preparedness mindset. Other things you need to think about with our upcoming storm season is you need to have, you know, a lot of people say you need to have at least 3 days of, you know, food and water. To me, that is not adequate. I mean, minimum, I'd say drop dead bare minimum. Drop dead bare minimum you should have in your house at all times is, and this is just my opinion, you should have at least 10 days of food and water in your house at any given time. Because there have been times when we have lost everything out here for over a week. I mean, and look at anytime there's any kind of disaster, you know, bad things happen, you know, it takes at least a week to 10 days for the government to get you help. It takes 7 to 10 days for them to get there, minimum. So you need to have at least that much in food and water and whatever necessary supplies you need. You know, so keep that in mind. I know a lot of people who they have to stop on their way home from work every night just to get something to eat dinner. They have absolutely nothing in their house. And then when the power goes out, you know, and the stores aren't open because the power's out, what are you going to do for food, right? You don't have a gas in your car. You can't drive to someplace that has power. Everything local is shut down and you have no food in your house. What are you going to do? I mean, this isn't, you know, some crazy conspiracy theory type planning we're talking about here. We're talking about, you know, real life. What are you going to do when what happens here all the time happens and your power goes out and you have no food, no gas, you can't get to any place, you know, you left yourself in a hole. So make sure you have that minimum, you know, 7 to 10 days. I prefer 10 days of food and water. And also when you're talking about the 10 days worth of food, stuff that you can eat and make without having an oven or a stove to cook it on, right? I mean, you can have a little camp stove or whatever, but you got to look at things that you're going to be able to do without the power being on. Things that you can eat without the power being on. Second most important thing is, you know, it is not warm here in the wintertime. And we're not like, you know, Alaska cold, but it is very cold here. And the dampness when storms roll through and everything makes it that much colder. You need to have some way to keep warm. I mean, at minimum, you should have a generator and enough gas to run the generator for 3 days minimum. You know, I know everybody can't afford a generator, but you have to have some way to stay warm. Now, whether that be if you have a fireplace, a wood stove, certain types of heaters that you can run inside that run off of gas or whatever that you can run inside, those are fine. You have to be very careful with those. They can cause fires, things like that. Just a lot of blankets. Make sure you have enough blankets. You have a way to make light, you know, a way to have light. You have batteries for those lights, you know, all these type of things you have to be ready for. And like I said, if you do not have the money to have all these things, do you have family that you can go to? Do you have a plan? If everything goes to crap here and I have no heat and I'm freezing, do I have someplace to go? You know, and it can't be your next door neighbor's house because they're going to be in the same boat. You have to have, you know, a friend or family member, someplace that you know you can go to if you're stuck without power for 5, 6, 7 days, and you know, and you have no way to heat your home or whatever. You have to have someplace that you can go. So make sure you have those relationships, whether they be family or friends, with somebody who is at a distance far enough away that they hopefully won't be affected like you. You know, like I said, you don't want it to be your next door neighbor or your cousin down the street or whatever, because they're going to be in the same boat as you. You want to have someplace you can go to get help, know where you can go, know how you're going to get there. That's another important thing. If you have to leave your home because of the power outage and things like that, you have to know multiple ways to get to their house. Now, why would you need to know that? Because here in the Pacific Northwest, we have all these trees. And usually when storms roll through, they take these trees out, and that's why you lose your power. The only problem is these trees often block roads. You know, and you have to know more than one way to get someplace. Because trees, you know, if it's bad enough your power's out, trees can be down. We've seen neighborhoods that they have a hard time. You know, they had a really hard time getting out of it because the whole neighborhood, there was trees down everywhere. It took them, you know, almost 2 days to cut their way out of the neighborhood because only, you know, they had so many trees down, and there's only a couple of people that had chainsaws out there. And that's another thing. If you have the means, in the wintertime, I always carry a chainsaw in my truck. And the reason behind that for me was, you know, like I said, I live way out here in the woods, but I worked nights. I worked from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 11:30 at night. That was the shift I worked. So I got off 11:30 p.m. and I would head out to come home, and I would get home about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was quite a drive to work every day and back. Problem is there's only one road out to where I live. And if a windstorm went through, I could have trees down, you know, all up that road. And I've had many times I've had to cut my way home because in the middle of the night, way out here in the boonies, the road crews aren't out here clearing the trees out. I had to cut my way home many, many times. I've had to drive over trees. I've had to drive under trees. I cut my way home many, many times. And if you're in a situation where you have to leave an area because of floods coming or whatever, if you have the ability, you have the money, carry a chainsaw with you, because you never know when you may have only one way to go, and you got to get out, and you need a way to cut your way out. So, anyways, like I said, these are subjects we could go way deeper into, and these are things that Washing 3% concentrates on, and concentrates on sharing our knowledge with our new members, and for anybody in the community really who wants to learn these type of things. We do a lot more than just that, but these are just some things to think about. And I'm just putting it out there to get everybody in the mindset of storm season coming up. And I just want everybody to be safe and have a plan and to be prepared. Take care of your family, right? That's what it's about. Making sure you and your family are safe. And hopefully, sharing a little advice with you will help you get there and be in a better situation should things happen in the coming months, weather-wise. And with that, I am going to call an end to this episode. I'd like to thank you for joining us again here on Behind the Wire on Rebel Radio. And as always, if you want to learn more about some of these subjects I talk about, and you're interested in our group, go to our website at WA3%, number 3%.org. And also we have our charity, Boots on Home Ground. As I've stated in the past many times, every penny that comes in goes to helping people. We have no paid staff. We keep no money for anything, not for administrative costs or anything. All of our people volunteer our time. And any money we collect goes 100% to those in need. And with that, that's all I have for today. Keep your head down this weekend. We're supposed to have some bad storms roll in the beginning of storm season, and hopefully you can get yourself and your family prepared so that not if, but when your power goes out this winter, you're a little bit better off than you have been in the past by following some of these little tips I gave you. And hopefully you'll be a little more comfortable during power outage too. And with that, good night, and we will see you next time on Behind the Wire on Rebel Radio. Good night.